In the Mood for Love is a love story that focuses heavily on two characters, a lonely wife, Mrs. Shan, and another lonely man, Mr. Xiao. They both move into an apartment on the same day and live in the rooms right next to each other. So throughout the film, their path crosses numerous times, lingering eyes falling over each other. So they start to engage in a romance of their own. This movie is very different from many of the famous love story that everybody recognizes today, since the two main characters actually never confessed to each other. They never get together. Instead, they both believed that they're together with their spouses, as if they aren't with each other. This movie also doesn't follow a clear path of time. Instead, it follows multiple sequences that ties together in the very end, telling a complete story. This movie ends on a sad note, with both of them breaking ties with each other, almost catching each other in the area multiple times, but never quite seeing each other. With its unique storytelling, the repeated scenes, excellent cinematography, and the better love story of the main characters, this film story is a true love story to remember.
Interior, night, restaurant, Hong Kong, 1962. Mr. Chow and Mrs. Chen are sitting in a restaurant having dinner together. Wide shot of them sitting in a booth from a booth point of view. The booth in front of them has an empty plate and a hat-tricking cup. Mr. Chan admits it is odd for the two married people having dinner together. He asks about where Mrs. Chan got her handbag. She asks why as she sips her tea. Mr. Chow explains that he wanted to get the exact same handbag for his wife. Close-up pan shot of him smoking a cigarette. Mr. Chan says she got it from her husband, who is on a business trip abroad. Close-up shots of their two conversation. The camera quickly pans to Mr. Chow as Mrs. Chan asks him a question. She asks where Mr. Chow got his red tie. Mr. Chow says that his wife got his red tie from a business trip abroad. Both soon start to realize that one of each other has a different handbag and the other one has a tie. They soon start to realize that their spouses have been cheating on each other. Close-up shot of their faces, then a close-up shot of Mr. Chow's cigarette from his lips going down to his thigh. The image of the smoke as they ask each other if they knew what was happening. And that's the start of the story.
So in this video I'm going to be talking about the relationship between the two characters in The Mood for Love and how their relationship was kind of doomed from the start. So their relationship was built on the foundation that both of their spouses were cheating with one another. And in order to get back at them, they kind of just started doing this weird fantasy like sort of thing where they played out like different scenarios with each other. And what I think is very interesting about that is it's tragic because their relationship actually had the potential to be something more than just a fling or something like that. However, because it was built off of them being cheated on, their relationship was already tainted and it was already doomed from the start, because at the end of the day, they really only got together because their spouses were cheating on one another, and they didn't act on the feelings that they may or may not have, gotten from one another. And at the end of the day, that's what ultimately doomed the relationship. They didn't act on their feelings, and their, whatever they had in the movie was built on a shoddy foundation of, spouses cheating.
The scene that I find interesting that involves camera movement and the relationship with the characters is when Mrs. Chan is talking to her husband in the living room. This type of camera shot is significant, and the director decided not to show the face of Mrs. Chan's husband's nor Mr. Chow's wife's face, to show how uninvolved these characters are within our protagonists' lives. By not showing their faces, we are being told that their faces are unimportant because the characters as a whole are irrelevant to the main characters. Another example is the close camera shots with the very somber and warm lighting in the movie also has significance behind it. An example is when Mr. Chow and Mrs. Chan are sitting alone together and rehearsing how she would confront her husband about cheating. I think that the director made the lighting like this and used very warm colors to give off the impression that both Mr. Chow and Mrs. Chan's feelings for one another when they are around each other is to physically show their feelings for each other, and that this type of warm environment is how they feel.
In the Mood for Love is a movie set in the 1960s about the betrayal in two marriages that force a bond between the faithful partners. They have chance encounters that draw them closer to each other with the same loneliness and desire for attention as each other. The music does very good in showing an accurate depiction in the era, country they are in, and the distance in the relationship between those two faithful partners, Chow Mo Wan and Sue Lee's in. The music gives you a good feel of how to interpret their encounters. It helps you understand and feel that their chance meetings are the fate of two soulmates that could never act on their feelings because they don't want to stoop to the same level as their spouses. The music also does a very good job of depicting the dark feeling of cheating spouses being absent. The music seems to be more noticeable as the couple's encounters happen. It seems to be a sign of the two getting closer. The music describes the relationship of wanting each other and wanting the physical contact, but how sad it makes them and that they know they can never act on their feelings.